they've decided that they're going to be like murder hobos or something.
Mm.
At the end of all of this, you show them, oh yeah, no, actually the world would have probably been a lot better off and
You have
if you hadn't done all of this crap.
You have like all your quest givers would have found other more competent people to do their quests better.
Alright, Alex, we're going way back in time for this next one. Okay.
What's the Flintstones?
Well, not necessarily. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the era of the Flintstones or when the Flintstones actually came out. Doesn't matter. The point is, we're going back to the 40s to talk about It's a Wonderful Life.
Ooh, 40s? I don't know if it was really that wonderful, was it?
Well, I guess I'd
World
have to
War
ask
II?
people. Yeah, it was late 40s. I think 47 it came out.
Oh,
So, it came out, it was Frank Capra classic, and I'm going to say that if people thought that Die Hard wasn't a Christmas movie, I would also contest that Wonderful Life doesn't necessarily qualify, mostly because it's just at the very end that actually takes place on, like, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and there's some themes around it, but it's not really central to the story. The story, for those of you who are not familiar with it, I'll summarize it badly for you.
Thanks.
George Bailey is a guy who, runs a bank, and things are getting really tense because they're gonna foreclose on this whole place because there's that jerk, that Mr. What's-his-face? I hate...
Scrooge.
He's basically a Scrooge allegory anyway. Mr. Potter is gonna, like, foreclose on everything, and your days are numbered, Mr. Bailey, and all of that. And George Bailey determines that he hates his life, and this is all terrible, and he decides that he doesn't want to live anymore, and then the angel Clarence comes and says, well, now, George, let me show you what a world without George Bailey in it would have looked like.
Oh, okay.
And so you get to go to a version of this town where George Bailey never existed, and you get to see that everybody's lives were miserable without him there. So he was kind of central to the happiness of a lot of characters in the movie. Hot take on my end, I didn't really like It's a Wonderful Life. Because, frankly, for, like, the first, like, hour and change before we ever get to the whole, like, what would happen if I wasn't here, that part of the story.
How long is the movie?
It's like a couple hours.
Jeez, that's too long.
It's only, like, in the last, like, 15, 20 minutes of the movie where we get into the what would happen if I wasn't here. The rest of the movie is looking at George Bailey's life, where he was when he started to where he is now, basically going through his life. And I think the thing that annoyed me about the movie is George Bailey's conclusion of, like, my life is terrible, I can't deal with this anymore, is something that happens after you see his life be pretty good, pretty happy, but it wasn't the great expectations that he had of himself. Big thoughts about what he wanted to do with his life, and what he ended
all
up...
the hopes and dreams.
Yeah, and what he ended up with was, like, I gotta live in this nice town with my wife, and my kids, and my house, and my business, and what's it all for? And then he gets angry, and then they show him that actually it's a wonderful life, George, because it turns out that, like, all of this is good, and people really rely on you, and you actually have a purpose in life, and that's nice, but then they also can't stop there. Frank Capra then has to go and also rectify all the problems that George currently has, so that he actually doesn't have financial problems anymore, and all the money comes in, and everybody has to gather around and sing a song, and Clarence gets his wings and everything. And it's like, you could have actually just stopped with, like, hey George, listen, you have some problems, everybody has some problems, but there's really a great usage of your time, and there's a real reason that you have, and let's just be happy about it. And maybe Mr. Potter dies and everybody's happy. That'd be fine.
So maybe the movie should have been like, hey, I think you got depression, buddy.
The This was the 40s. People didn't get depression back then.
Exactly.
Remember?
Anyways, so Adventure Hook based on this?
Adventure Hook based on the idea of the party never existing in the world.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, this is actually what I wanted to focus on, not the first part of the vignettes of the characters. But I feel like this is something that would be interesting as like an end of campaign thing for the characters toward the end of their time.
I was thinking it'd be more fun later on.
Oh yeah. And you know, depending on the setting, maybe there are actually angels or demons that are actually leading you through this. There's a point where you play characters for long enough that you might start asking, like, what the relevance of those characters in the world is. And I think that there's a really interesting story to be told as, let us show you a world where you were never there. And have them realize that.
I think it'd be good if you had characters that had an extensive background, characters that were really fleshed out with like relationships to other people, not just characters, but like they have their own family, for instance, maybe, or they have a kid, or they've got family they left at home, or an old job or something too that you've kind of dug a little into in the entire campaign. Like for my character Hephaestus, it'd be like, if you never existed, then this guy would have died. Like his friend Shump would have just like not survived his first night in the woods that you met him. He would have been eaten by that spider. And going back further, your island would have, you know, somebody else would have gotten bitten by the lycanthrope and then terrorized the island instead of finding out, you know, something like that.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of these. Essentially, what we're doing here is kind of chaos theory. It's butterfly effect stuff. It's this idea that if you're not there, the absence of you being there changes the events of history. I think that there's two ways that this goes. There's the one that's the most obvious correlation to It's a Wonderful Life, which is that you see your characters, and it turns out that everything that happened was for a reason, and the world is in very much more disarray because you weren't there, especially for main characters that you've met and the ones that you have the close relationships with. However, I have a more interesting idea. Your characters...
A more nefarious idea.
Yes, a more nefarious idea, and I think a demon does this. I think a demon, leads you to this alternate world where you didn't exist, and actually everybody's lives are better. and then you kind of go, oh, what the hell did we do with our time? And you know what? This would be really interesting for a campaign where your players acted like idiots the entire time.
Where your players are doing not evil characters, but not necessarily good characters.
Yeah, exactly.
Morally ambiguous characters.
Do the kind of campaign, like if they've decided that they're going to be like murder hobos or something, at the end of all of this, you show them, oh yeah, no, actually the world would have probably been a lot better off. And if you hadn't done all of this crap.
You have, all your quest givers would have found other more competent people to do their quests better. Oh, you know that lady that owned the farm that you killed all those goblins and wargs off of and helped defend? Yeah, and instead, some brave adventurer kind of helped her out and they fell in love and she got married.
Yeah.
But instead, you helped her out and you guys just moved on and now she's still single and... people don't go near her because she's an angry crone.
She got 50 cats.
Yeah.
And they turned out to be lycanthropes, and they ate her.
I don't think they need to be lycanthropes to eat.
Oh, that's true. The cats
just do that.
The cats will just do that. They get hungry.
Yeah.
They get hangry.
They do.
Yes, I like the idea of just these were missteps that you made, and now we can actually explain to you what would have happened. I think that it's a good way to frame it for a lot of the party at the end, that there's some consequences to your actions. I think that it's also a good reward for when they do relatively good actions that have been beneficial, that maybe you've set up over the course of the time to say, hey, if we weren't here, what would this look like, and what would happen to especially characters that you thought were particularly of interest. to the player characters themselves.
I think it'd be interesting to do that kind of thing, but also let them do like perception checks or sense motive checks on the different events too. But like, are you sure this is what would happen? Are you lying? Because if it's a demon, for instance, maybe they're showing him a falsehood.
Yeah,
like,
you have a false narrator,
it's all,
unreliable.
It's all. Yeah, it's none of it's like necessarily concrete. So they could be like, is that really what would happen? We can see through that veneer you got. You're using a little bit of your trickery illusion magic there. You catch a demon out and he's like, oh shit, I guess, fine, okay, here's what would have really happened.
Or it turns out to be a complete charlatan that doesn't actually know anything. And they just constructed... Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's just, it's not someone who actually can read the future or anything like that.
You're not even a diviner.
You're not even a diviner. You don't know anything.
You just got illusion magic.
No. I don't have illusion magic. I'm an Imagineer. It's fine. I am a conceptual soothsayer. There's a little thing on his contract that says, for entertainment purposes only, or something, like on his bed. Great Zoltan! The Great Zoltan! Great Kazoo! No, bring it back to Flintstones. Great Kazoo. Anyway, I'm thinking that there's a lot of possibilities to that, but the idea of, like, taking the party and suggesting, like, well, what would happen if you weren't here? And then having that resolved and maybe getting a deeper understanding of their characters afterward is a really interesting thought process to go through. I don't really know what would have happened to, like, my characters if I had done that. I think that it would have been a net positive if they weren't there. There'd be towns that aren't on fire right now, so...
You know, if Max hadn't been there, there would be a back end of this house that would still had a wall that didn't have holes in it.
That is true, but if Max was not there, there would have been a lot more orcs. Than there currently are. So think of that.
Yeah.
Also, there would be one less were-rat in the world.
True.
So, hey, again, I'm thinking a net positive overall.
Yeah, net positive.
Net positive. But anyway, would you want to... Are you actually concerned about seeing some of your characters go through this thought experiment of what would happen to them?
I think it'd be fun for some of them.
Okay.
I've thought of doing stuff similar, but obviously not Christmas themed or Christmas adjacent.
It doesn't have to be.
Where I had basically more so time travel shenanigans, where it's sure. You've gone into the past and now you can affect the future that you know is going to happen.
Yes.
Potentially.
Yes.
For good or bad. Or not at all. Maybe you're the catalyst for it and you just don't know it.
Right.
But that is a little different than this is what it would have been like without you here. It's more of, alright, you're here, what are you going to do?
For Rembrandt, I think that it's probably a net negative, because as I said, there'd be a lot of people that would still be alive and a lot of towns that wouldn't be on fire. But there'd be one less surfboard in the world. So...
True.
Or they wouldn't have even invented the surfboard, I don't think, if he wasn't there.
Cowabunga.
Snowball? There's a lot of cases that wouldn't have gotten solved without Snowball. Or maybe they would get solved better and more efficiently. I haven't really determined that. So I'm kind of wondering, for the folks that are out there, since we're doing this thought experiment, what do you think would happen to, like, your characters if they had to see a world that never had them in it? And what do you imagine they would see?